Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing through the marketing mix where we've begun and thought about our target market objective, and we're moving through operational decisions before we ever reach out to that market to talk to them. So again, as you recall, we made product or experience decisions first. Did we look at tweaking our product offering or changing some policies or looking at programs or services that we provide for that target market so we could really own that market? I hope you've considered ways to be the ultimate provider in creating the ultimate experience for that target market first. We need something really attractive to take to them, so make sure, and if you can't do that, then go find another target market. Simple as that. Own the market and create the right experience for them first. We next talked about distribution, and again, typically a tool in our field that very few of us are really sophisticated with using, but a great solid concept in marketing that's existed across time. We have some challenges in our industry right now in terms of, in some areas, the overuse of distribution channels causing customer confusion and frustration, but in some cases, the lack of distribution where organizations aren't even thinking about how they link what they do to their target market through other logical providers that make a lot of sense for us to pursue. So I want you to be thinking again about the product or experience that we offer to the consumer. I want you to think about distribution channels that you should engage with and utilize a way to reach more in our target market. And then the third concept under these initial decisions relate to pricing. And I have to say, in my marketing career, this would be an area that I was pretty not well prepared for making decisions, and yet I had 15 hotels that I made pricing decisions about all the time. And I honestly can recall an embarrassing moment when I look back at my past that we were making decisions about the marketing plan for this next year, and we got to the pricing decision section for this hotel. And I had my competitive analysis, and I knew what we charged in the past, and I knew what our occupancy was, and what forecasted demand would be, and how hard we were working at engaging more consumers to improve our occupancy. But the pricing decision just always felt to me like it was taking a coin, and literally I did that once. I took a coin out of my pocket and I went, do we want to be at $99.95 or do we want to be at $105.95? And I flipped that coin and I went, huh. $99.95 it is, and there we go. Now, I say that literally because it happened, that story, but more importantly, it's how I felt that I didn't really know, and even though I had some of that base information. So I am always surprised in organizations that I work with that they don't complete a competitive analysis. They don't really have an understanding of the market and markets they're targeting and what their willingness to pay is, and how scary that is to me for them that they are just picking price points for other reasons. So today I want to spend some time planting a seed with you, whether you have direct responsibility for making pricing decisions or you can help influence and suggest to people within your organization how to look at our pricing decisions that we've made in the past, but more importantly, how we're looking at making them in the future. What I also know in our industry is we can use price pretty quickly as a thing to try and drop or reduce in an effort to try and get more people coming to us, increasing demand. And we want to be really careful about pricing decisions because, again, once we create a price, we've created an image and a value in the eyes of the consumers that we serve. And so these are critically important decisions. I never want to have that feeling again of it's a crapshoot or it's a flip of a coin. I want to find ways to be strategic about pricing, to have greater confidence in making decisions, and again, ultimately make the best decision for my organization so we produce the return we're trying to reach, achieve our marketing objective. So pricing, very powerful. Don't take it lightly. Do some homework, and let me give you a few techniques to consider and things that don't leave home without it. Don't make a marketing pricing decision without doing these things. So first off, we want to look at the kind of two steps that we take to make pricing decisions. First, we want to set a pricing objective. Secondly, we want to develop a strategy and then tactically determine what price we're going to charge. So let's kind of take that into 2 points. Let's start with a pricing objective first. I have my organization and what I need to think about in terms of every single thing I offer, whether I'm doing a promotional event, whether I'm doing my regular offering, whether I'm doing a league or a special group price, whatever my price, I need to consider first, what's my objective for setting this price? So, for example, there are really kind of 4 objectives we might consider. The first is surplus maximization. And surplus maximization simply means we're going to make as much profit or as much money or as much revenue as we can possibly make with this target market. Now, if you think about it in the product life cycle, this would be when we've got a really hot, great thing and there's not a lot of competition. We can take advantage in a positive way of those early adopters and those innovators, right, who are willing to spend money on something that they can't get other places. The technology industry has done this for years. As soon as the latest, greatest iPhone or computer by Apple comes out, those innovator or early adopters are the ones standing in line the day before it's released. And they're going to pay the highest price possible in that case, right? Because they know Apple wants to make money in this case. They have a surplus maximization goal, and they know that those innovators, early adopters in the tech industry are willing to pay for that. Well, in our industry, it's the same thing, but there are other things that are the greatest, latest, best concepts that we can look at, again, setting our price in a way that makes money, for-profit oriented pricing decisions. So again, for so many of us in the for-profit side of our industry, this makes a lot of sense because ultimately this is our objective, is to make the most amount of profit we can for our shareholders or investors or whoever has a stake in our organization. But it doesn't mean that we're not going to use the other pricing objectives to make other things happen. So, for example, in that for-profit organization, I might use any of the other 3 objectives to still ultimately make money for my organization. Conversely, a nonprofit organization does the same thing. Even though their ultimate goal is to break even, right, and achieve their mission, it isn't to make a profit. Ultimately, they might make a pricing decision that enables the organization to make money at this activity so they can do their other things. And again, I'll go back to a fitness center as an example. The YMCA is a nonprofit organization, but they will charge membership fees at a higher price that feel very commercially oriented so they can do the other things in their organization that are lose money or not for profit. So for example, they give scholarships away to individuals who want to come to a fitness center but economically can't afford that price. Well, bottom line is, between a combination of objectives and pricing strategies, they ultimately break even. So the same thing happens whether you're for-profit or nonprofit. You may apply the surplus maximization pricing's objective, right, in different types of settings. Now, cost recovery is another example of an objective that, whether you're nonprofit or for-profit, you may use the cost recovery example as well. Meaning, I'm going to set my price just so I cover costs in this case. So on the for-profit side, perfect example that I utilized was at an airport hotel property. We had 200 hotel rooms that I needed to fill every night, right, or opportunity lost. And the challenge at an airport property is people don't come there for multiple days. They come to an airport property most often for one-night cycles. So that means 7 days a week, 200 rooms every night. I've got to find individual guests or groups to come, kind of one-night stays. A resort, a whole different deal. I'm finding them for a week or a long weekend or a weekend. But here at an airport property, again, very unique dynamic. So cost recovery were utilized at this one airport property that I worked with because demand was flat, mature stage of the product life cycle, right? Demand was flat and supply was oversaturated. We had more hotels in this market that everyone was trying to get that demand as best they could. So instead of filling 200 rooms every night, we looked at base business. And base business meaning, could we sell 10% of our rooms, 20 rooms, to a group of people who would buy them every night, 365 days of the year? Well, when you think about an airport market, one of the targets would be airline employees. Flight attendants and pilots need to spend the night in a market before they can fly again, right? Regulations. So every airport market has what we refer to as base business, a target market that needs rooms every night, 365 days of the year. Now again, but they're not willing to pay a lot for those rooms because they're giving a lot of room nights to someone. And they know, especially in an oversaturated market, anybody would give them those rooms for a really discounted rate. So in our case, we decided strategically to go after some base business because filling 200 rooms in that kind of market environment was really difficult. So if we could take 20 rooms off the books every night and just charge them enough to cover our costs. We had so many fixed costs in our organization that we wanted to tie in, right, covering some of those fixed costs with this space business. So went to an airline, targeted them all, looked at which one would be the best kind of partner, started the sales process, right, tactically approached them, worked through the cycle, and ultimately took 20 rooms off our inventory every night because of this cost recovered base business. $35 a night for our rooms that we were charging over $100 for a rack rated price normally when we were in surplus maximization mode. So with that, cost recovery for this for-profit company became a pricing strategy for that target market. And I hope that makes a lot of sense to you. In this case, why we would do that. Again, strategic decision. This wasn't flippant, because honestly, if I could fill those rooms with higher price business, that would be better for us. But in our case and situation, we decided to secure that and again, be still providing the great services we've always provided and being really thankful for that base business to help us through that pretty challenging economic times in that property and in that airport environment. So cost recovery may be more common thinking for a nonprofit organization in our field, with the idea that we're only going to charge as much as it costs us because our ultimate goal is to break even, all right, or have our costs covered. So even though, again, so far, nonprofit or for-profit, both of these types of objectives may be what you utilize at different times in your organization. But there's two other objectives we should consider as well. Next being usage maximization. And again, certainly there are times in both scenarios for organizations, whether nonprofit or for-profit, that we just want to get as many people into our organization as possibly that we can, because that will help us. And I'm going to price what we're doing in a way that gets people in. So, for example, in hotels that I had opened for our grand opening, a grand opening celebration was a common marketing tactic. I would go to all the target markets we were going after and invite them to a very grand celebration when we opened in a new location. First of all, introductory stage of the life cycle, nobody knows about us, so I need to get a whole bunch of people to know about us as quickly as possible, or we're never going to move up the life cycle chain. And so our objective here was to set a price for a grand opening that was free to people, and it cost me anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 to have a celebrity there, to have food and beverage that was beautiful, to have entertainment, to again welcome people within our target markets. And so again, my invitation list is very specific to our target markets, but to get them to see the property and start moving up the product lifecycle chains. Now again, keep in mind, my ultimate goal was to make a profit, but I'm going to use, in this case, usage maximization as an objective in my pricing decision, because I need a whole bunch of people quickly to know who we are, what we're doing, and why we'd be a good value to them. So keep in mind, again, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, we might use this as an important pricing objective. And then market disincentivization is a concept that, although in my career at least I haven't used many times, we know that by setting a price, we naturally disincent other target markets, or other markets at least, hopefully not who we're targeting. So for example, the fact that I set my hotel price at $150 naturally turns away some market segments. Conversely, when I set my price at $450 per night, it also turns off or turns on certain markets, depends what I'm providing in the experience. So by nature of setting a price, you disincent certain markets from coming. But we're talking here about specifically setting a pricing objective to disincent a specific market for a variety of reasons. And again, in the 15 hotels that I manage pricing decisions for, I can think strategically of really only doing this purposefully once. And it was a market where we had a large corporate base, certainly Sunday through Thursday at our property. A large percentage of our business came from core 3 providers in the area, but all corporate kinds of consumers. And although they had some weekend layovers and stays, the bulk of the business was Sunday through Thursday. So we always were looking for how to fill those Fridays and Saturdays in this corporate type of hotel environment. And one of the markets that became available for us to target were soccer groups. It became, again, soccer groups traveling, whether it was AAU teams or the like, but certainly our area became known for hosting soccer tournaments, etc. So it made a lot of sense for us to consider it. But we learned quickly when we were providing services to that market that they were in somewhat direct conflict with our corporate clients that did stay on the weekends. Again, that type of environment, the fun liveliness of a soccer team and coming in and out, and again, youth that will be louder maybe than some other guests we might host and welcome into our properties. You know, some of those innate challenges of the age of the people and the environment that they're here to participate. We had soccer balls in hallways, right? And some of that was a management issue of how to manage that, but it really became we were having more problems with our corporate client, even though we weren't full on the weekends. Those who were staying, we needed to rethink. And so we actually decided we weren't going to have soccer groups because there was high demand in our market, right? There were people wanting to have rooms at these hotels in our area for those soccer weekends. And certainly when they called to see if we had room available for their team of 20, you know, and they wanted 20 rooms with us, we wouldn't say, oh, we don't want you to come to our property. But what we would do is set our prices in a way that we knew other properties in the area would have a more attractive price for them. And if we could get them to book at this price, then that would be okay, knowing that the vast majority would never book at that price at our property. So we strategically set our soccer price at $99 when all of the area hotels were at $79. So when you called our hotel and said, hey, we're interested in having, you know, some of our teams come to you, what would it cost? And we'd say, well, it's $99 for that room. And then they'd say, oh, okay, we're going to go somewhere else. And so we knew we were strategically doing that, and we did that because of the challenges we had in managing and operating as a soccer weekend hotel versus our core clients that were incredibly important, even though they didn't fill the place on a weekend. So we started going after other target markets, wedding groups or other types of group social business, social transient guests, looking to appeal to them at our property as kind of a non-soccer hotel, since the other ones were filling with soccer business. So it was an interesting lesson that I learned about how, again, in a for-profit company, I might purposely set a price to turn off a market. But you want to be pretty careful here, knowing again that every time you set a price, you are disincenting some other market by the simple nature of picking your price, whether high or low or right in the middle. So our first objective, whether a nonprofit or for-profit organization, is to set our objective for why we're going to set this price. So again, recognize in every organization, we may have multiple prices to set and multiple reasons for doing so. We better have a really solid reason for doing that, and then we're going to get ready for actually making the tactical decision. So our next step of the process then is to build our pricing strategy. And simply when we're talking about strategy is, what are all the tools in our toolkit that we can bring together and really make a really good choice about the price that we're going to set? So, for example, do we know the cost associated with delivering what it is we're delivering? What does it really ultimately cost us? And if we don't have a handle on our costs, then we better get that first. So all of the elements in a pricing strategy, we really should be focusing on gathering this data and information so we can, again, pick the best price we want to be at. One is demand or variable-oriented strategy information. What is demand right now? Is this going to be Super Bowl weekend in my town? Well, that's going to create a different pricing choice or decision, knowing that demand is really high, versus at a property or location or organization that demand is really low. Again, across the spectrum of our industries, and I'll pick on bowling centers right now. Well, there's a seasonal pattern to bowling, as there's a seasonal pattern to fitness and golf and hotels, and our business and industry has seasonality kinds of issues. So I know in the middle of summer, a bowling center isn't as busy as it is, right, during the fall or spring or winter break kind of seasons. It's a great activity to do when the weather's not super nice outside. So when we think about demand, when demand is really high, and if I know demand patterns of what that seasonal pattern is, I should be setting prices based on that. So if you don't understand in your organization your demand patterns, not only by month or season, but by day of week, time of day, etc. It's one of the neatest things I do under market research, I think. What I try and help organizations is, let's know exactly what we're talking about. So I'm going to take all your rounds of golf across your 6-month season, and we're going to plot them by day of week, by time of day, because you need to know as an organization that Tuesday mornings are your absolutely slowest day. And actually Sunday mornings are your busiest day. Now, I'd like to say that's the pattern for every golf course, but it's not, because every time competition changes, demand, the market within reach changes. So I can't say in every golf course that would be the case, but for this golf course, right, that was the case. So we understood some patterns of demand in terms of what kind of business we've had in the past, but hence the reason why understanding my competition is so important. Because maybe they were full on Tuesday mornings. Maybe they're just getting all the business and we're not getting it on those days. So maybe demand is higher, but we just haven't secured it. So when organizations slowly only look at themselves, that causes me great concern. We should always have a handle on our competition and what's going on in a broader marketplace. Always. And I would never in our industry make a pricing decision without that information. So demand, we can learn that a variety of ways. Things like the STAR report in lodging and now in food and beverage, and hopefully in a whole bunch of other aspects of our industry relatively soon. I love things like the STAR report because it gives me a sense of what demand is, because I know what percentage of the market I really have. So if my yield score is 120%, then I have a really better handle on what kind of demand is in the market. But I also know I'm getting more than my fair share of that market. So concepts like market share analysis, etc., also help me understand market demand, not only what my organization is getting and doing. I've already alluded to this, and again, I'm honestly always shocked when I work with organizations that do not formally look at their competition on a regular basis. And I mean regular in terms of when the seasonality changes, when decisions by a competitor change, I should be looking at them that often. You know, whether it's quarterly, whether it's monthly, whether it's annually, biannually, you're going to have to decide in your organization. But I am not making marketing decisions, certainly about pricing, unless I understand what the competition is doing and trying to understand their strategy and their price points so I can decide for my organization where my price point is going to be. When we continue to look at other variables in pricing development, I'm also going to look at target markets, and I'm going to really try and understand what target markets are willing to pay. We call it WTP, or a willingness to pay. So I want to understand a target market's needs and their willingness before, again, I ever make the decision to set my price. Understanding the market inside and out, understanding my competition, understanding demand, understanding costs associated, and any other variable put into my bag of tricks will allow me to finally set my price. So when we come to pricing development, we're going to actually set the price. And one concept is called price skimming. Price skimming simply says we're going to go after those innovators, early adopters. I'm going after, out of a whole market, I'm going after this percent up top who are willing to pay high prices. I've already given you the example of the technology industry, and that's one that goes price skimming all the time. I'm going to charge $600 for the latest iPhone because I'm only looking at those innovators, maybe some early adopters, quickly off the gate. 2 months from now, it'll be dropped $100 price, and then we get the majority to purchase that kind of thing. So price skimming is good when your product is really hot, when somebody really wants this experience. It's unique, it's wanted, it's desired. You're going to tell the market about it. So when you have high demand initially, you can look at a price skimming kind of strategy. Price penetration is the reverse. So I was in a market once that had not yet developed. Chrysler was going to build a huge tech center, and we put a hotel in a market that Chrysler delayed their whole tech center development. So they weren't there yet, but we were. We had a brand new hotel in a market that had no activity. So in that case, we had to set for that hotel a price penetration because we had to try and entice people to come from other markets up to our hotel, or we would have sat empty until that tech center had been built. So their delay, caused us a delay. We're trying to get there early on, and in that case, became a problem. So price penetration, I'm charging price in this hotel, in this market, that I never would have charged had demand been higher. But price penetration was good because, again, product life cycle, I have to get the word out. I have to get some people in there. So I'm going to try and do that. The real concern I have about price penetration is once you establish the price in a consumer's mind, they feel that's the price value. So if they've only ever paid $50 for your hotel or $10 for a ticket to your amusement park, right, or $1 for bowling, or $5 to get into your concert kind of idea, if they've only ever paid that low price, when you go back to kind of the normalized price for you to be able to make a profit or surplus maximization, and you go and you charge $100 for that hotel, you're going to lose a portion of that market because they don't feel the value's there. So we always want to be careful when we actually develop a price from a penetration standpoint. I like to use techniques like a coupon or something that they know is temporary, 1 month only. You know, you can get this for this value, because again, we've got to move up the product life cycle, and depending on the market conditions, make some decisions here. So price penetration, a powerful technique, but you've got to be careful in using it. Price fencing or variable pricing is one of the next techniques. Very common in our industry is we use different techniques to make decisions for different market segments. So variable pricing has almost become commonplace, that we know depending on the seat in the arena, you pay a higher price for up front than you do in the nosebleed seats. You know, if you book in advance, you might get a better discount in this running race or this festival to buy your ticket in advance. You know that if a hotel is empty, if they're really smart, you might get that hotel through one of the distribution channels last minute for a really low price if they have space and you have need, kind of idea. So by nature of our industry, we've bought into the idea that different markets for different reasons get different prices. You bring me 20 people to come to my amusement park, right? I'm gonna give you a better price than if you just brought one, kind of idea. So pricing, we know the development of setting that price not only takes understanding your objective at that moment for that offering. It understands strategy tools that we have available to us, that we're not going to make a decision until we've done our homework and know those kinds of issues. Thirdly, we want to set a price, but what kind of tactic are we going to use? Are we going high? Are we going low? Are we going right in the middle, right? Are we doing what we think is fair and right? Or are we going to use variable pricing for different market segments as we look at? Are we going to use couponing or temporary kinds of things? Or how are we setting that price? So what I want to know for sure is that you're not taking the quarter, flipping it, and going, let's charge this. I want you to have a better handle on when you have an opportunity to make a pricing decision for your organization, whether it's for a promotional event, whether it's for the core product that you offer to the target markets you want to serve, that you feel very confident in your decision about making sure you've done your homework and you know that this price is right and it's going to help you achieve your objective. So have a great day. We'll continue on as we look and explore at the power of marketing within our hospitality, tourism, recreation, event, food service, attraction industry. Don't you love it? Have a great day.